Vegan.
1, 2,
Free.
Welcome to the Vegan123 show with me, Berty Justice. And today I'll be joined by Chris Booth from Soundart. Good morning, Chris.
Morning, Berty. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thanks. A little bit tired this morning, but we'll cope.
That's good. So the first tune I'm going to start with is called Somewhere Over the Rainbow by Iz, and it goes like this. So that was an awesome track, Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And what I like to do is when discussing about veganism, I like to bring it back because a lot of people don't really know what the roots are and what it really means. We hear the word and we make associations, but at its core, it's a philosophy, and the actual manifesto started with this: veganism, a philosophy and way of living which seeks to exclude, as far as is possible and practicable, all forms of exploitation of and cruelty to animals for food, clothing, or any other purpose, and by extension promotes the development and use of animal-free alternatives for the benefit of humans, animals, and the environment. In dietary terms, it denotes the practice of dispensing with all products derived wholly or partly from animals. So as I said, I remember hearing the word vegan many a times when I was a lot younger, and I'd make these outlandish sort of assumptions about it and generalizations. But it's always good to, if you're talking about veganism and you're discussing the topic, is to really know what the actual philosophy is and realize that it is a philosophy, that it is a way of living, and it's deeper than just a diet or deeper than just a fad. It is a philosophy, and a really positive philosophy when you break it down. Causing less harm, improving the world is a very awesome thing to do, and I've explained last time I was here that how easy it is to live that kind of lifestyle. And interestingly, so last time we were on, we were discussing about the use of terms and the use of wording, and so this week we're going to be talking about different sort of campaigns that appear. So an example would be like, not using straws in restaurants and those kind of things to help fish. And interestingly, Chris has brought up, there was hashtag Love Lamb Week. And how did it make, when you first heard that term, Chris, what did you think about?
Well, I'm a sucker really, because it's, as you say, it comes down to your definition of language. So their interpretation of Love Lamb Week isn't my interpretation of what Loving Lamb Week would be about. So I guess that's my first issue with it, is the lingual semantics behind it, because obviously I don't find the idea of slaughtering X million lambs who, if they're lucky, get to live to sort of 7 months old is a particularly loving thing to do,
It is a complete contradiction.
It's very much a contradiction, isn't it? Yeah.
But unless we get a little nudge to remind us that it is a contradiction, like we discussed last time, some people say that they love animals, but really they just love some animals. So it's a weird love. Do you know what I mean? If you're good, it's, for me, like I was saying about I am all about invention and technology and trying out new things to improve the world. You know what I mean? Let's recycle more. Let's do all the obvious things. And then when people, and using less plastic is just a no-brainer. So when I initially heard about, use less straws to help the fish, and interestingly, years ago, if you look on the side of tuna, it says dolphin-friendly tuna. But why not? So, but it's disregarding the tuna. It's saying let's look after this type of fish, and then, but at the same time you're eating another type of fish, and the sort of disconnect and the huge craziness to it all is that cod is like on the brink of extinction, but we praise cod in the UK as like, yeah, fish and chips. Do you know what I mean? Do you understand what I'm saying, Chris?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I noticed that the awareness of overfishing and overfishing of cod seems to be filtering through society a little bit more nowadays. There's a lot of a move towards people encouraging people in fish and chip shops towards, is it hake and whitefish and
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, absolutely.
The thing that jumps out at me, so I'm kind of like, there's a piece of paper in front of me. I will say there's a piece of paper, and when people talk about not using plastic straws to help fish, what just jumps out to me, screamingly obvious, is don't eat fish to help fish. If you want to help fish, don't eat fish. If you want to be a wildlife conservationist, don't eat other animals. It's a weird disconnect. I don't know, Chris, have you ever heard of Melanie Joy?
No, fill me in.
So Melanie Joy is a psychologist, and she's got lots of other, she's very qualified in lots of different areas. But what she did is she spent a lot of time studying human psychology, and specifically how humans treat animals. And it's one of the terms she uses is mental gymnastics. And so her book is titled Why We Eat Pigs, Wear Cows, and Love Dogs. There's this, do you know what I mean?
So it's a psychological investigation into the cognitive dissonance that people have about animals' use.
Exactly.
And care and nurture.
Exactly. And I said this last time, I'm not here to point fingers and be like, you eat me and you love dogs, you're horrible, blah, blah, blah. What I'm here to do is I'm here to give people a nudge and say, do you realize that you are creating your own cognitive dissonance? You are taking your pet dog to the vet, but you're at the same time that evening you're going to be eating chicken or duck or whatever slice of animal. It needs to be said. It needs to be said that those actions are hypocritical. And when I see Love Lamb Week, to me that's hypocrisy. That's not. If you love lambs, then you allow them to live the full extent of their lives. And the notion of lamb as well is like it may taste better or whatever, but that's a really young animal. And like I said before, when you start digging a little bit deeper, and you're like, well, actually, why are we using these terms like happy animals and they've had a good life? And I do feel that some farmers will give animals a comfortable life. But the reality is that the comfortable life that they're going to live is what favours the farmer and what the farmer can profit from. So it might be a nice barn and it might be a nice field, but it'll only be for 6 months. So it's almost like it's a way of sort of I believe it's misleading to say Love Lamb Week. It's leading people down a sort of an illusory path that they can love animals and eat them at the same time. It's sort of like magician work almost. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I do see that. I think it's brainwashing. I think, a young child who had seen a lamb or something like that could interpret Love Lamb Week in a very different way. And I think if they actually understood the reality of it, they might see it in a different way. It does feel it's a little bit manipulative.
Yeah, I've definitely... The thing is about children is they are super smart, and several of my friends, I'm like, why don't you eat animal products anymore? And they said when they were children, they were going and visiting ducks, or they went to a small holding or something, and they met a chicken. They stroked the chicken, they saw an individual, they got home, and their parents were serving them chicken, and they just without brainwashing, without conditioning, the child just said completely truthfully, why are we eating the chicken? We just met a chicken. But us as adults, and I am guilty of this, I would do the mental gymnastics, I would do cognitive dissonance, and I would not really look into the propaganda of you need protein from meat and all those kind of things that are all around us. And it just takes a little bit of research just to go, well, actually, you know, plants have protein, and if I really want to be an animal lover, then I can't eat them at the same time. It's a contradiction. It's a oxymoron. Do you know what an oxymoron is, Chris? It's kind of like two words that are complete opposite. A little bit like humane slaughter. That's
military intelligence, I think, is the famous one.
Say that one again.
Military intelligence.
Okay. Yeah, but it's the thing is about the human race is that we are inventive. We are engineers. We've created planes so we can go to other parts of the world. We've gone into space. We've got computers. We've created technology so that we can communicate. That I'm communicating with you now from Devon, and you could be in Alaska, or you could be in the Sahara Desert if you've got Wi-Fi connection or an ability for the internet. Why I'm saying this is because there is a part of me that believes that human beings can work from where we're at right now. We can look at our society and we can go assess what we're doing and think about it like maturely and like objectively, and be like, well, we're currently in a pandemic, and that pandemic might have come from zoonotic diseases. If it has come from zoonotic diseases or it hasn't, it's a wake-up call for the next zoonotic disease that appears. And when you delve into it, zoonotic diseases are the diseases that come from animals. And what I was trying to say is that I see technology, I see human invention, I see different cures coming around, and improvement on what we know and what we can do. And as a human race, we can go, well, what's happening with our food system? Well, our food system it includes killing animals. It includes suffering for them, because there's no getting around it. Every time we eat animal products, there is going to be some suffering that's involved for some other individual, whether he like it or not. And then, the environmental aspect that we've touched on before. There's lots of links on my website and lots of papers and lots of documentaries that show that it's really not good for the environment. Just straight off the top of my head, we've got trawler net fishing, which is destroying the oceans. The oceans are broken, basically. But within all this negative thing, for me, it's blindingly obvious that the solution, or something that's going to improve the planet, is going to be not using animals. Whether it's on do we want to have less suffering in the world? Whether it's, do we want to use less resources, water, land? We want less pollution. And so within that, it's kind of like, okay, so we've got this mess. There's a lot of mess on the planet. What Hoover can we use? What's an instant way that we can improve on the system that we've currently got?
I mean, I think if I was going to reach into my vegan crystal ball and look into the future, I think we might come to a point where actually governments put an awful lot more pressure onto their citizens to move towards vegetarian, vegan diets. And I suspect that could happen quite heavily in much the way that people are, moving to electric cars, and they are saying, now we're not going to phase out petrol cars by 2040. We're going to try and do it by, 2030 or whatever. And as you said, actually, the farming of animals internationally is a significant drain on the planet's resources. It's not doing anybody any favours in terms of the volume of stuff that's grown just to feed animals, and the amount of burps, isn't it? It's cow burps, not cow farts.
Well, so there's with cows,
the methane gas anyway.
Methane and CO2, and methane in some cases is more toxic and more powerful than both of them. But it's for me, and obviously you, because we are knowledgeable of this, but everyone listening can now do their own research and go.
Well, quite, yeah. And the evidence does seem to suggest that if we follow the current path, there is an uptick in the number of vegans and vegetarians, but it's not moving fast enough. And given what we know about, melting of the polar ice caps and changes of temperatures around the world, it's very possible, so staring into the crystal ball again, that there will be more of an authoritarian push on citizenship to stop eating meat and to stop farming meat, because it's so integrally and provenly tied into climate change.
Yeah, absolutely. And within that, you get the zoonotic diseases. So you have swine flu came from an American slaughterhouse. So do you know what I mean? So it's not just, that's the great thing about veganism, and that's why I've named this show Vegan123, that it's awesome for the environment, it's awesome for the animals, and it's awesome for human health. And so where human health comes into it right now is the zoonotic diseases. You know what I mean? Like I mentioned before, the zoonotic diseases have killed people and do kill people, and the easiest and most practical, like we're spending lots of money right now researching how to get a vaccine for a disease, a virus, and the next zoonotic disease that appears, we will have to go through the same process and spend the same amount of resources trying to find a vaccine or some sort of cure. The reality is that we can sidestep that. We can take the short route, the easy route, and avoid all of that, those deaths, avoid the potential for all of those things by simply changing the system, basically. And it's a great an equation. So you have it's better for the animals, better for the planet, and better for human health, and just makes a lot of sense. And as I said, I keep repeating it, but it is so true. It's so easy and so simple to implement. And I always promote that people just do the best they can. Some people don't want to go vegan overnight, but they will stop drinking dairy. You know, they'll find out about dairy calves, and they'll realize that human beings, a lot of them are lactose intolerant, and the fact that we're not baby calves is a surefire sign that we're not designed and we don't need to drink milk. And so right now, I think this is a good time to pull up another track. Give me a couple of seconds. Chris, just while I'm trying to find this, what was the last album that you listened to? While I'm trying to can you pick your brain to think the last album that you played?
The last album that I played? I don't tend to play album so much. I'll tell you what I did play. I played the new release by a band called Sunlux, who I'm always talking about on Soundart Radio. I think it's called Tomorrow's. Came out in July. It's amazing. You'd really like it. I think it's I don't know. It's quite modern. It's quite nerdy.
Okay. Are they local?
Are they local? No, they're American.
Are they American?
Yeah.
When you say nerdy, what do you mean?
Just that they're a trio. They're very much a musician's band. Well, I'm not so sure about the lyricist, but their guitarist, Rafik Bhatia, he's an amazing guitarist but composer. So it's very composed works. And then they have a drummer who also does sort of all their sort of electronics and production. And it's very in depth. It's really well produced. They're not like an indie rock band. They're I don't know, it's just interesting. It's deep, it's mournful, it's in places, it's uplifting in places. It's a very short album as well. I think it's there's always a joke when I was a kid, that Slayer made the perfect album that was 28 minutes long, and 28 minutes is the perfect length for an album. It's short, sharp shock, as it were. You don't get bored of it because it just goes on and on like some records do. So it's a great sort of half-hour slab of contemporary pop music.
Amazing. Okay, so the next track that I'm going to play is called Free, and it's by the Box Sets. And I have a real interest in beatboxing. I sort of taught myself to beatbox, and anyone who's maybe seen, I used to beatbox at my talks back in the day. But so the reason I'm playing these guys is because I really like their music. It's like I think there's 4 or 5 females, and within this track, every element of it is been created by them, the individual humans. So just have a little listen at how good they are. And I was fortunate enough to see them live at an outdoor gig. It was so good. Have you ever seen a beatboxer live, Chris?
I did a workshop with Berty Man at Camp Festival about 10 years ago.
I am. Do you know what? I am very vegan, jealous of you. I'm so jealous of you.
Yeah, it was great. He is such a lovely guy. And I spent the entire day walking around saying things like syncopated soccer ball and other little beatboxed phrases.
I am actually. I'm a little bit in awe because Berty Man is definitely one of my big idols.
Certainly, he's a legend as far as beatboxing goes, isn't he?
You've made me. You've lined up another track for the next time I'm in.
And he's vegan, isn't he?
Is he vegan as well?
Oh well, I'm hoping he is.
Okay. Well, I'll send him a message and find out if he is. And if he isn't, I want him to make a beatboxing track. Why he isn't?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the box. Hey.
Let's have it.
So that was the box sets. With Free. Hope you enjoyed that one. I always do. Chris, do you remember last month when we talked about Joaquin Phoenix and his Oscars speech?
Yeah, I remember you mentioning it. I've not heard it.
Yeah, so basically I've brought it along today so that everyone can have a little listen, and I feel that we touched on it before, where we have a lot of high profile, very famous people within society. And some of them are sort of obvious vegans and outspoken vegans, and then there are also the more quieter vegans. So sort of James Cameron, who made the Terminator videos. Not many people know that he was. Did you know that, Chris?
I didn't know that. No.
So him and his wife have actually set up a vegan school and all sorts of really positive things. But the reason I bring up Joaquin Phoenix is because he is a household name. A little bit like Moby to a lot of people.
Not to me.
Joaquin Phoenix?
I mean, I know the name, but was he the Joker?
He was the Joker. So you do, So you do.
So that's all I can really. That's the only connection I can make when I hear the name. I'm sure, and River Phoenix, I guess. Brothers?
Yeah, and his brother, and also he was in Gladiator. He was the prince or the king in Gladiator. You know, the one who sort of killed or was cruel to the gladiator. Do you remember that?
I didn't. I've not
Okay,
seen
it. so if you do watch it, he's one of the main stars, and he's done lots of other films.
Right, okay.
But for me, the reason that I sort of got drawn to Joaquin Phoenix is because of his Oscars speech, and so he he had his sort of slot of time, and he used that platform to promote what I'm going to play now.
Is that this year?
It's the most recent one. I will try and do two things at once, which will happen. Yeah. So this year, the most recent one, I think it was this year. And when you find out about Joaquin Phoenix, you actually he is involved in a lot of things and supports a lot of really positive. Vegan organizations, and just having a little look here. Okay, so here is his speech.
Any of my fellow nominees or anyone in this room, because we share the same love, the love of film, and this form of expression has given me the most extraordinary life. I don't know what I'd be without it. But I think the greatest gift that it's given me, and many of us in this room, is the opportunity to use our voice for the voiceless. I've been thinking a lot about some of the distressing issues that we are facing collectively. And I think at times we feel, or we're made to feel, that we champion different causes. But for me, I see commonality. I think whether we're talking about gender inequality or racism or queer rights or indigenous rights or animal rights, we're talking about the fight against injustice. We're talking about the fight against the belief that one nation, one people, one race, one gender, or one species has the right to dominate, control, and use and exploit another with impunity. I think that we've become very disconnected from the natural world, and many of us, what we're guilty of is an egocentric worldview, the belief that we're the center of the universe. We go into the natural world and we plunder it for its resources. We feel entitled to artificially inseminate a cow, and when she gives birth, we steal her baby, even though her cries of anguish are unmistakable. And then we take her milk that's intended for a calf and we put it in our coffee and our cereal. And I think we fear the idea of personal change because we think that we have to sacrifice something to give something up. But human beings at our best are so inventive and creative and ingenious. And I think that when we use love and compassion as our guiding principles, we can create, develop, and implement systems of change that are beneficial to all sentient beings and to the environment. Now, I've been a scoundrel in my life. I've been selfish. I've been cruel at times, hard to work with, and ungrateful. But so many of you in this room have given me a second chance. And I think that's when we're at our best. When we support each other, not when we cancel each other out for past mistakes, but when we help each other to grow, when we educate each other, when we guide each other towards redemption. That is the best of humanity. I want to, when he was 17, my brother wrote this lyric. He said, "Run to the rescue with love and peace will follow." Thank you. When you witness the horror that really happens behind closed doors in slaughterhouses to farm animals all over the world, it's impossible not to be affected by it and to realize that we have to do something drastic to stop it. Instead of being judgmental and attacking each other, we should try to help each other and educate each other about how we can change. And there's certainly many things that I need to do, many improvements that I can make in my own personal life. And I'm trying to do that. And I encourage people to talk to me about that, right? And to educate me, right? Because I don't know everything. I'm just trying to figure it out also, right? And I hope that we can just be open to each other and really hear each other and hear the importance of this message. First, I'd like to thank the Hollywood Foreign Press for recognizing and acknowledging the link between animal agriculture and climate change. It's a very bold move, making tonight plant-based, and it really sends a powerful message. But something I think isn't oftentimes talked about in the environmental movement or in the conversation about climate change is that the meat and dairy industry is the third leading cause of climate change. And I think sometimes we wonder, what can we do in this fight against climate change? And there's something that you can do today, right now, and tomorrow by making a choice about what you consume.
So we had quite a lot of ideas presented then by Joaquin Phoenix. Is there anything for you, Chris, that's sort of jumping out?
I think the first thing is what he said right at the end there, is that the most obvious and the simplest thing that anybody can do to improve everybody else's life, you know, to make life on the planet better, is to adopt a plant-based diet. Simple, you know, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does. The thing is about the truth is that for some people will take it on board straight away. It'll go in. But for others, it is a process. And I was one of those people. You could have told me all these different things 10 or 15 years ago, and I would have just carried on and gone out and eaten a kebab that night or whatever. Do you know what I mean? I was complicit. I preferred to live in my own little bubble. But I use my example because over time and with deep thinking and kind of like connecting dots and thinking logically and objectively, it made sense. So for anyone out there who it may be, you know, even if they hear the word vegan, they're like, I could never do that, or they're sort of triggered by it, or they get upset, or whatever emotions you have with it. It's about realizing what is objectively true and what makes a lot of sense. And I've been really lucky that I've been to quite a few animal sanctuaries, and the people I know, when I was growing up, we had lots of animals around, and a lot of them had names. So, Chris, have you ever sort of delved into the idea that some people bring pets into their home? Mm-hmm. They recognize that they're individuals. We don't just call them number 1, number 2, number 3. You know what I mean? We see that they're individuals. We see that they have personalities. And so some people might adopt a dog and be like, it felt like a teddy, or do you know what I mean? So we called it Teddy, or it felt like it reminded us of Uncle Billy or Uncle Ray, so we called it Ray. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, we already have a recognition of animals on that level. Does that make sense? And so what I like to do is, when I visit animal sanctuaries, is give these animals these individuals, and I've been really fortunate. I've met some pigs that were rescued from a slaughterhouse, or they were on the way to being killed, and other animals that instead of being killed were allowed to live out their lives on sanctuaries. Mm-hmm. And so in front of me, I have a picture of Patrick. And Patrick is a small pig. And I feel that instead of just instead of calling him a pig, he's not just a pig. A pig is the species that he is. He's also an individual. It's when I met Chris today, I didn't say hello human. I said hello Chris, because he's an individual. And I feel this is something that we should do more with animals that we meet within the world. Instead of going, there's a load of cows in that field, we should say there's a load of individuals in that field, and I wonder what type of grass they prefer eating. Do you know what I mean? Instead of grouping them in this like big one stamp fits all, they're all cows. Well, no, they're not cows. They're all individuals. And that's something that we easily look over as a species from a human perspective when we're looking at non-human animals. And so yeah, I've got Patrick in front of me, and Patrick actually lives on my bedroom wall. He reminds me that sometimes I do get a little bit sort of frustrated at the world, because for me it's blindingly obvious that killing animals doesn't make any sense. But I've spent hours and hours talking to people. I've spent hours and hours debating people, and I'm sitting in my house going, okay, so there's some more rules about a pandemic that might have come from a zoonotic disease. When is the point when humans are going to go, actually, this doesn't make any sense anymore? Do you know what I mean? And a little bit like your magic ball, I'm hoping that magic ball starts to appear. And similarly, for anyone who hasn't seen, go check out Carnage, the documentary. In fact, it's a mockumentary, because it's a sort of play and fun documentary. And it sort of looks back. It's kind of set in 50 years' time, when people no longer eat animal products. Like, I'm sitting here right now, and Chris is sitting here right now.
People do it in secret, illicitly, don't they? Like drugs.
They do. But I think it's, and also the only reason they find out that people did eat it is through like history lessons, or like you go to a museum and you see it's pretty crazy. You have like a chocolate egg, so an egg-shaped object that's made out of cow's milk, that's been processed, like taken from a cow and then turned into to shape an egg, where you could just get some chocolate and make it into a bar, and it would pretty much taste the same. Do you know what I mean? It's this very weird system and society that we currently live in. But the great thing about Carnage is that it's like this, what we can move to. We can we are gradually I see different things in society are improving, and I feel that, it's more that I hope that this is the next big thing that people go, actually, yeah, I'm not going to do this anymore. It doesn't make any sense. One of the sort of get out clauses we have as humans is because we are actually so disconnected from the animal products we eat. I know very few people who would actually kill and process every item of food. I would grow the lentils that I eat. I would plant them. I would water them. I would harvest them, and I would cook them and eat them, and I would share them with friends, family.
It's interesting actually that you say that, because a lot of people who talk about how we need to move away from this sort of rapacious world of consumer capitalism into a world that's more equitable for everybody on it has to involve more of a collective response to community food.
Yeah.
So I think, again, gazing into my vegan crystal ball, that will be a direction that, even if there's resistance to it, will be the natural inevitability if we don't all blow ourselves up or catch a zoonotic disease first, you know.
Yeah. And interestingly, though, so, I mean, the blindingly obvious thing is for me, when I don't know if you've seen, do you know what a slow time lapse of a plant growing looks like?
Yeah.
Have you seen the whole, the flowers booming and stuff like that?
Yes.
And you'd be happy showing everyone that, wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't. I do enjoy watching that process, and I have watched it many a time, and I'm fascinated by it. When I see how animals are used and bred and chopped up and they're killed, essentially, I don't want to watch that. I don't want to show it to anyone else who might feel uncomfortable. Do you know what I mean? It's not like I would say, oh, you really need to watch this film to uplift your day. And do you know what I mean? It's that cognitive dissonance. It's that we go into a shop, we go into a supermarket or wherever we get food from, and the majority of people who are probably listening to this purchase food. Some may not. Some are. There's obviously very small niche who grow everything themselves, and that happens. But I'm talking about the majority of people buy stuff and haven't got the time to grow their own lentils. And we are so far disconnected, and we are in this kind of we've kind of got someone coined the term blinkers. I think I said last month my sort of bacon tinted glasses that I looked on the world. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the other thing, potentially a little bit contentious, but the dominance over meat seems to be politically a little bit to the right and a little bit authoritarian, and
how do you mean?
A little bit pseudo-religious. It's about positioning man over the animal and man's dominion over the animal, so if you put yourself on an equal footing to an animal, then you have diminished the glory of mankind. And that seems to be an nonsense. Attitude that is prevalent through committed meat eaters.
All I have to really say is bless them, because those notions are so outdated. It's like them saying, let's bring back VHS. Veganism is the MP4 at the moment, do you know what I mean? Or whatever the next invention is. Those notions of we need to maintain power over someone else actually really highlights that there's an issue with that individual, and they probably need to look into it and get some help with that, because what would possess you to have dominance over somebody else or something else? It's kind of it's a very, if it sounds to me like there's something missing if you need to do that. But that's, I am obviously an individual, and these may not be the views held of the whole radio station, but I think that's outdated. And
well, it comes from the Bible, doesn't it? That's how outdated it is.
Oh, really? Okay. So, I mean, yeah, I do want to be cautious. And the thing is about religion is that everyone's entitled to their beliefs, but within it you have to question certain elements of it. You know what I mean? We're not the Bible was created 2,000 years ago. We're not there. And so we have to question, there's certain things in the Bible that no one would ever do right now. So that it's kind of like, if elements of it are outdated, then that's what happens. You know, we don't live by the Bible word for word. And
Absolutely not. If you hear a bush talking, don't kill your children.
is that part of it? Is it okay? Yeah. And see, I'm quite lucky in that I've got lots of different friends with lots of different faiths, and I've got lots of friends who are religious and they're vegan. Do you know what I mean? Like I've spoken about it in some of my talks, and religion doesn't necessarily mean that you have to eat animals. Do you know what I mean? It's a philosophy, it's a way of living that other people want to live, and that's great, and it can be really positive. But you have to also question it. You have to question simply, like for me, killing animals isn't a loving thing to do or a compassionate thing to do. So the people that I've discussed religion with before, they've talked about a benevolent, loving God and compassion and those ideas. But if God was looking down and I was just wandered down and I went and killed a lamb, I don't think he would say that's a loving thing to do. And knowing that we don't need to, we have to question things. I do keep saying these things, but we have to question. You shouldn't just go along with the rhetoric. And as I've said many times, don't go along with everything that I'm saying. Question the things that I'm talking about. If you're like, actually, Bertie, I don't think that fishing is destroying the oceans. Go and have a look and look into the research, because I'm not here to sell anything. I'm not making any like profit. I'm here to go like, there's a piece of paper here. I would like you to look at it. This piece of paper is white and is this dimensions. You then have to then look at the piece of paper yourself and identify it. And all the topics, like the topics about the dairy industry and the topics about zoonotic diseases and the fact that swine flu came from America. Go and have a little look yourselves, because as I said, I'm not here. I'm not profiting from advocating veganism. It just, if I wasn't vegan, these are the things I would want to hear. These are the truths and the connections that I would like to be shown.
I think that's key, really. I mean, if I go back to profiteering rather than profiteering, I think a plant-based diet is part of humankind's natural evolution. I think it's part of the path of our existence on this planet, is this planet's human race moving towards a plant-based diet. But in terms of why this should happen, as Bertie said, all of the information is out there. You can't deny what is
actually happening,
undeniably true and actually happening.
It's not really. So I've got into lots of debates with people, and I've got into lots of discussions, but it's not a debate. Like if I brought a lamb into this studio, and I brought a knife, Chris would say, "You're not killing that here," and I'd be like, "But I'm a meat eater. You know what I mean? I love lambs. I love Lamb Week. Do you know what I mean? It's a very that's not. There's no joke. There's no hidden agenda. If I started promoting eating like I did last time, promoting eating dogs, people would be, you can't do that. That's outrageous. But for me, it's outrageous to then kill a lamb in this without holding the same values for both.
One of the things that seems to come up when you talk about the world moving towards a plant-based diet is people go, but what would happen to all the cows? What would happen to all the pigs?
Yeah.
So what do you say to that?
What do I say to that? Well, I say that, okay, so we are great. The human race is actually waking up, and they're very progressive, and they've decided to not kill each other, and they've decided to not kill animals as well. Great start. Okay, so already I'm like, wow, this is a great surprise. And then we sit down with the greatest minds on the planet and the greatest. In fact, we don't even need the greatest minds. The reality is that all these animals that we see have been bred. The reason that we have millions and millions of animals in the UK is because we're breeding them. First step, Absolutely. So this is let's go down this interesting Bertie as Prime Minister. So you've put me, and what I've done first step is I've put every household has to have a hummus tap. So you have a hot tap, a cold tap, and a hummus tap. So that's Bertyville.
It's my vote.
Yeah. So I'm president, and I've phased out meat eating is becoming to be phased out, and the reality is that I could come up with a concept, but I would take advice from experts as well. So first step is how do we cope with all these animals? They keep popping out. Okay, if you stop breeding them, if you stop forcibly breeding these animals, they won't breed as much. The reason there is so many of them, and also we're hyper confining them and breeding them at like super rates, as soon as we can. In some cases, that's obviously, when I talk about these things, there's obviously going to be little outliers, but I talk about the majority because the majority of it is about making money and getting animals bred fast and fast and fast. So first step, stop breeding them. Second step is, so we've now got all this land that was devoted to breeding animals and fattening them up, letting them eat food, whichever form it is, grass, or you bring in corn or whatever, or soy, whatever product. You know, with this land, these animals can either live on that land, or we like I've visited many sanctuaries, we open this land up for sanctuaries. And then there's leading on from that, other people go like, oh, so when the whole world goes vegan, these animals are going to go extinct. You want to kill these animals. And the reality is like, that's insane. It's like, oh, somebody's car's broken down and you want to smash the windows as well. It's like, no, that's craziness. What?
I think there's two things going on here, because if you take your traditional, your black and white dairy cattle, they're a bred species. They are an evolution of a species that would have lived in the wild. They're not a creature that would live in the wild.
No.
Anyway, so
the question.
So if we start phasing these animals out and stop breeding these animals, then very possibly that type of bred Pacific dairy cattle will become extinct, or exist in the most limited ways in sanctuaries as some kind of evidence of
how
mankind's history of how we ate food.
Yeah.
But cattle itself won't become an extinct species, and there will still be. You would still be able to have scenarios where you could have a small number of wild cattle that would live naturally, as we have, as could happen, say, on Dartmoor or, in Kazakhstan steppe land. There's huge swathes of, grassland towards, South Asia and, East Europe. And so you will still have these places where, where these animals exist, as the root of what was subsequently bred to become fodder.
And
for us.
Absolutely. And within that, I'm just going to sort of top up on what you said, because the original animals that these what I call genetic hybrids, manipulated genetic hybrids that we currently have that you see in fields, they're not the natural animals. They've been created. They've been a little bit like what we do with dogs. We mix their genes so that they have this certain tail or whatever, or they have this certain size udder or whatever. We do that with the animals we eat because of money and profit and what we can gain from it. The reality is that the jungle fowl, so chickens that we see and some people eat in the UK, came from a jungle fowl. Jungle fowl is like a wild animal. These animals still exist, and cows still exist. So it's really interesting. Like I said to you about before, about the holding the microscope or holding the magnifying glass over veganism. Like these notions of, it's the recurring topics of what about what you're going to do with all the animals? You're going to make them extinct. Why are we genetically hybriding these animals? Like what gave us the right to start mixing with their genes? Do you know what I mean? Like so that we could have a burger. It's insanity to me as an individual with my own perspectives. It's insanity to start messing around with other animals' genetics for a hamburger or something that you can make a bean burger and you still get satiated and you still get full and you still put sauce on it, and or you can get, if you find a plant burger that tastes exactly the same, why would we manipulate, mess around with these animals' genetics, make them, their udders like unbearably, in some cases unbearably too big. I don't know if you knew, Chris, sometimes in the dairy industry the udders will be like, they're not, you look at the original cows, the udder's not the same size because they've been turned into dairy machines, not individuals. You know what I mean? And so with these, I'm always open to having these discussions, but it is a two-way street. Why are we messing around with their genes? If we're talking about they might go extinct one day, well, what we're talking about, the genetic hybrids that we've created, and in fact chickens, the chickens that are in factory farms would not survive outside of those barns. Inside the barns, in some of them they've created artificial lighting that mimics the sun, so that the animals grow at the fastest rate. And these individuals who I've seen on the back of a truck, and they did not look well, they did not look happy, they looked depressed. And my perspective was, I felt sad and I felt horrible that these individuals, there was thousands of them on the back of this truck, and I looked into their eyes and I was like, why as humans are we doing this to these individuals for some sort of like chicken burger or some sort of like Sunday roast? Why are we messing with their genes? Why are we messing with their habitats and not allowing them, creating these genetic hybrids? Like, what's it, like a Frankenstein morph? Does that make sense, Chris? It's like a Frankenstein. When you mess around with a gene so much, it turns into like a Frankenstein animal. And a Frankenstein animal that won't survive outside of a barn. Do you know what I mean? It's a very, why, obviously it's a rhetorical question that anybody who eats meat or still eats meat need to ask themselves, why are we doing this?
People close their minds to it because you will come across an article every single week where very publicly animal welfare standards called into question. So I've got an example here from The Guardian, a couple of weeks ago in August, but it's talking about broiler chickens in the US, and these animals live inside all the time. They can barely move, they have damaged legs, they have skin complaints. It is abominable. And I think I mentioned on the last program that we did that 65 million
one each
chickens were slaughtered, indeed, one each, because they were unfit for human habitation because of the horrendous conditions that they've been kept in. And this, to me, it goes back to that cognitive dissonance again. This doesn't feel like compassionate human behaviour, and people are choosing to look away from it rather than acknowledge the truth of how destructive and unfair most of the meat eating industry is. To square it, call it quite squarely. It's not.
Well, yeah, I always use that term, not pointing fingers, but the onus is on the people who are buying these products and profiting from them.
It's free market capital, isn't it? It's about making
supply and demand.
As much meat as possible for the least amount of money, and obviously, in that scenario, corners are cut, but it's not doing anybody's favours when corners are cut to such an extent that 65 million chickens destined for human consumption, subsequently slaughtered as unfit for human consumption. It's madness.
It absolutely is, and so the harsh reality is that we're only hearing the ones that are publicised. This isn't every case. This isn't every individual that's lost their life. This is the ones that have made it into mainstream sort of awareness. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So there are countless. We talked about the male chicks in the egg industry. There are millions and millions and millions and millions of individuals every year that will never get we go to graveyards, and we go and we think about our loved ones, and they have a funeral, they have a special time and a sort of like a passing. Someone has passed away, and they can you can make peace with it. And if you feel like you need to go and have a little connection with them, or be reminded of their life or whatever, we can go back to the graveyard. Animals, so those 65 billion animals, Chris, would have been put into an incinerator or into a hole in the ground and never even considered again. Do you know what I mean? It's this crazy disconnect that's going on. And I wanted to just there's millions. So that figure of millions, there's millions of other individuals. We're all individuals, so we know what it's like as an individual. We like being ourselves. We like existing, and we know that we are individuals. We have different outlooks. We have different likes and dislikes. So each of those millions and trillions, in fact, it's into trillions when we start including fish worldwide. They're all individuals. They have their own.
Something that you said last time, which I was quite touched by, was that obviously all of these animals, they do, have families, and animals, mammals especially, make these familial connections. They do have mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters and cousins and nieces. All of these familial connections, exist. Whether you choose to see it or not. 982 million broiler chickens a year in the UK.
Yeah, and I'm gonna give them all the name Patrick, because they're all Patricks or Patricias or Patsies or another name Paulas. Do you know what I mean? They're all individuals, because sometimes with numbers it's great as an overview. But how many was it?
Just for broiler chickens, 982 million.
That's insane.
It's a lot,
and that's just the ones that they've reported, like I was saying.
Well, this is from government UK farming statistics. So UK consumption every year is 10 million pigs, 15 million sheep, 14 million turkeys, 15 million ducks. So just out of sheep, pigs, ducks and turkeys, that's one each. And then, yes, the ridiculous number, this is where we're getting into the consumption of fast food and whatever, 982 million broiler chickens, and nearly 1 billion chickens killed in the UK every year. And then, as you said earlier, you start moving into fish and shellfish, and you're talking about 4.5 billion fish and about 2.5 billion shellfish. So that's about 8 billion marine animals in the UK alone. A lot of numbers.
It just doesn't make any sense. Like it's senseless violence. We've been discussing, and we will continue to discuss the devastating effects that come from it all. Do you know the golden rule, Chris?
Tell me the golden rule, Bertie.
So there's lots of them, but Will Tuttle sort of advocates the golden rule, and lots of other people do, and that is treat others as though you want to be treated.
Ah, yes. I don't think Will Tuttle came up with it first.
No. So he's the advocate. You know about Will Tuttle, then?
No. Tell me more.
Oh, he's a philosopher and educator, and basically he went on a world tour. And his book, what's it called again? The World Peace Diet. So he's advocating, if we want to aim for world peace, we do it through our diets, and it completely links to everything we're saying. But when we look at the numbers, and they're insanely big, those are all individuals. And the reason I say the golden rule of treat others as though you want to be treated is I don't want to be killed. I don't want to be put in a farm. I don't want to be separated from my family. And I don't want my life taken for a burger or a sandwich. Do you know what I mean? So it's this, when we sit down and eat food, we're like, would I be comfortable with other people killing me for their meal, do you know what I mean? Like, but that is because we have this, it's speciesism, a speciesistic view where we separate ourselves from the rest of the animals on this planet. We are mammals, like you touched upon, and I think I've touched on before. But we use this label of humans, but actually the notion, the truth is that we are mammals, and we are part of the animal kingdom. We may be smarter. We may be in different ways. We're not smarter at swimming underwater and navigating from Antarctica to other hot climates, or like birds do. We're not as smart as that. Do you know what I mean? So we are, but it doesn't matter how smart we are. It's not you. It doesn't matter how smart you are. Like if me and Chris were having an IQ test,
we're not very smart if our actions are resulting in a world that's becoming uninhabitable.
Yes, it's basically like burning your house. A good analogy would be like burning your house and flooding your house at the same time, burning the roof and flooding the floor, and sitting in the, like, you've got a 3-story house and you're sitting in the middle going, okay, the water's rising and the fire's happening at the same time. Shall I just I'll just kill another cow and eat another burger, even though I'm not going to consider the environmental impacts of it. It's like, well, no, actually, what should we do? Oh, so actually my diet is actually really, my 1,095 meals that I'm eating a year plus snacks or whatever is actually going to have a massive effect on the world. How can I change that? Well, what I can first do is I can educate myself. And, the first thing I can do is actually, when I go down the milk aisle, is I'm in that same aisle anyway, is I can just pick up a plant-based milk, whatever it is, whatever one tickles your fancy. That's the first step. Do you know what I mean? And then you're like, well, actually, now I just have plant milk and everything. And when I go out or whatever, I just ask for a plant milk. And then you're actually part of the process of positive change. And I think some people are. I mentioned it before. The elder people that I've spoken to, they're like, oh, it's too late, or it's too late for me, I'm too old. But actually it's not. Like, right, today is the day that anybody can start drinking plant milks instead of cow's milk. Just I love using, it's not that I love, but I like to emphasize the apostrophe in cow's milk. So for those that don't realize, the apostrophe means ownership, and it belongs to cows. Cow's milk belongs to cows. Beef burgers belong to the cow. Everything, it's theirs. It's not ours. Why do we? It's like me killing Chris now and eating his arm and going, well, I wanted that. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. It's using the notion that we were touching on before, is that it's using our brute strength and our intelligence to dominate other animals. We are animals too. Dominating others, like Joaquin Phoenix, is like, we need to address why we're not giving women equality and animals equality at the same time. You know what I mean? If you're about women's rights, you should also be about animal rights. Do you know what I mean? These are individuals that have been treated second best or worse, or do you know what I mean? Like, it's a natural evolution to start improving the way we treat others the way we want to be treated. This is a good time to play my next track, and it is called Wake Up by Arcade Fire. So that was Arcade Fire with Wake Up, and some people may have heard them. They're quite often used on adverts and those kind of things.
Canadian, aren't they? Is that right?
I don't know. I just really like their music. I've always just been sort of drawn to their music. They could be Canadian. And so we are coming to the end of today's show, of the Vegan123 show here at Soundart Radio. So hello to those people who are still with us. And it's been a really interesting show. We've been able to go over lots of interesting topics and sort of, for those that are interested in this show, this is what we talk about. You know, I mean, we're talking about current topics as much as we can and delving into Vegan123 in whatever form it comes.
So before we go, just what have you got coming up over the next 4 weeks before we meet up again, Bertie? Are there any events or speeches or anything that people can get involved with?
To be honest, my talks are usually at festivals, so at the moment it's gone a bit quiet. But if anybody is interested in my stuff in between shows, I do have a YouTube channel it's got hundreds of videos on there where I've explored these topics. I've interviewed world record breaking athletes, that kind of thing, like Laura Klein and Pat Reeves, two of them that, there's sort of, I like to once I found out that there was these world record breaking vegan athletes, I was like, I've got to interview them. I've got to find out what they eat. And so they're there. So what else am I doing? I'm very busy at the moment, but I'll probably be making a couple of videos and releasing them and doing a bit of research for the next show, actually, and delving into my music archive to find out some gems again. How about you, Chris? Have you got anything nice planned between now? Is there anything else coming up on Soundart?
No, nothing particularly. Completely separate to the Vegan123 show. I guess the biggest thing on my horizon is helping listeners to launch Skylark, which is our new radio station for Dartmoor. So next time Bertie and I are on air, we will be probably 4 or 5 days from actually launching for real.
Nice.
On Dartmoor. Unique new radio station for Dartmoor. So that's taking up a lot of our time at the moment. Other than that, lots of vegan cooking. As we said at the start of the show, it's the easiest change you can do to make a better planet.
Yeah, that's it. That's good. Vegan123. In fact, what I will bring is I do have a jingle, an intro coming soon. So just to make it that little bit more awesome. Yeah. Have you got a final track that you want to finish with?
Well, no, not particularly. I've lined Moby up in the playlist because, as we know, Moby is our favourite vocal vegan. It's been really good. Next show will be in 4 weeks' time.
Yeah, end of October. Yeah,
date of which I can't.
That's okay. Yeah. We'll be here in 4 weeks' time.
For sure. Thank you for listening.
Have a lovely day, everyone. Take care.
Vegan
1, 2,
3.